Coleman, you are not on the Brookjaw Ranch at the moment. You're off on your Strands on his own side adventure. And what I really like about your character is that you're, in the premiere you start, well, he can speak Spanish, there's something...
Didn't know that, did you?
Yeah, so...
Neither did I.
But it's indicative of Strand as being somebody who doesn't show all his cards to everyone, and I expect, there could even be a scene where there's a tank, and someone's like, we gotta get out of here, and he's like, follow me, and I know how to drive a tank, or something like that. That has to be really fun to play, especially when you do get a script, and like you said, you didn't know he speaks Spanish, because you're always discovering something like that because he's so full of secrets.
That's what's exciting. What were we gonna say?
He has it's fun to play a bullshitter.
Yes, it's nice to play Dayton Callie. He's the best guy in the world. I love this guy. No, he's great actually. I love that he's like peeling away in a way. And I think Dave and the writing team are always trying to really just discover something new about him. I think he has many tricks up his sleeve, but he doesn't show everything immediately. But I also think that's part of his power, and I think he keeps some control in that way by not letting you know every single thing about him until it's absolutely necessary. So I think I love the idea that now that we may look back and think that when he was in Mexico and people were speaking Spanish, if you go back to season 2 now, maybe you're realizing that, oh wow, he understands everything that's going on, but he's just like holding out a little bit.
It seemed like at the top of this episode that we would just watch that, okay, well, he's been through a lot, he almost died, and now he's got his groove back. He's got a cool car, he's driving down the road, and then right as it seems like he's about to ascend or he thinks he's going to strike another deal, it goes totally sideways. Is that sort of the hallmark of what his story might be this season? And Dave and Gail, you can speak to this too, just as far as Strand trying to come back on top, but it's not quite working out.
It's not going to be as easy as it was before. I think he's always trying to get back on top in an old way. And he's learning that it's still not working. Even if you roll off in a green Jaguar, it's going to be compromised, or it has no value anymore. So I think it's still hearkening to some of the old ways, but he's fighting and trying to find his footing in this new world.
Well, the thing about Strand is he marks the currency very quickly. He's the guy that knows water is going to be the currency of the day. He has a connection from the old world and decides to pursue that. And I think that's, he has, a greater sense of the architecture of this world and knows what we need. And it's really just a question of how does he get into a position to get it? Because no, it's not an easy season for Strand. It's not going to come quickly, and it's going to be an ongoing drive. What's interesting, what complicates it for Victor this season is this unexpected friendship. I don't think he expected to become as close to Madison as he did last season. I don't think, and eventually at some point, hopefully these two worlds will collide, but you got to get a sense of Victor Strand, the man who loved Thomas, and was not accustomed to it, to be honest. That was an interesting business relationship. It was a personal relationship, and I think those two things don't always meld incredibly well, and so that's going to be a continuing challenge for him this season.
It almost seemed like, Coleman, that what your strengths were, as your character's strengths were in the past, they were directly being called out by Dante in this episode, and he was being punished for what he was, for the way he did things. So is there a sort of an atonement aspect to this season, or to his character now?
I think absolutely. In many ways, I think he's coming to terms with a lot of his old vices, things that he used to do, or the way maybe he thought it was a different relationship. He thought, we were doing business together, and that was, this is what you do in business. But I guess he wasn't being as human as possible. So I think that season 2, in many ways, I keep saying it was a deconstruction in many ways of Victor Strand, or even Western civilization. And I think he's fighting to become more human and figuring out how he can use his strengths in the new world.
Alycia, Frank's not here, but if you could talk, it's interesting because in the second season, your character, Alycia, spent a lot of time resenting Madison for wanting to find Nick, for the way that she would go out of her way, even in dangerous ways, to protect him or to find him. But now that you're all reunited as the Clark family, what is the dynamic now as siblings? How do you feel? How do they feel about each other now? That they're together, the family's together, and she doesn't, Madison doesn't have to look for him anymore.
It's interesting. The dynamic between the two has always been a little strained, and I think it's easier. I think that they're finally all together now, and I think she can relax that Madison's now got her babies in the nest, and that's her priority. And so I think that gives Alycia, who's always been trying to, it always worries her as well. Then she puts that burden on herself a little bit too. And so I think it allows her to relax and take some of the pressure off of her as well. But I think, when Nick left, she resigned to the fact that I may not see him again and I've got to let that go and that's okay. And he's come back with, a girlfriend and he had suddenly a whole new group of people with him. And so I think they're still definitely in different worlds, but it's just the fact that they now have lost a common element, that they've lost Travis. It's unfortunately all brought them together, I think, with that pain in a way. It's always been a funny struggle, though, that the relationship between the two of them. I think they do love each other deep down and always will, but it's always going to be a bit of a push and pull.
It gets a little tense when I propose to you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Greg didn't like that.
You're getting pretty good with that blade, too, as we saw in this
right.
episode.
Yeah. It's a shame, though, I got to use it so much in the second season. I got really, really good, and then we went on break, and suddenly I tried again, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to stab myself. I lost a lot of ability pretty quickly.
There are a lot of different weapons in the Walking Dead universe. You've got crossbows and swords and so forth. I want to talk about the spoon. And what it was like to film that scene. It was an extended moment with that spoon in the eye. I imagine, a Madison action figure would come with that tea set and that spoon. What was it like to shoot that?
It was a great scene. I mean, I pretty much just met Daniel Sharman, who plays Troy, and we just launched into it, the three of us. We shot it over 2 days because it was a long sequence. The first bit was quite, we did most everything of our stunts, so it was quite a lot of wrestling and fighting. The spoon, I thought was a brilliant idea. I'm sure you guys must have had a good time in the writer's room when you came up with that one. Spoon from a tea set.
We had to act it up because we knew Daniel's like, what, 6'2", 6? So just imagine two writers struggling around the table trying to figure out if this could actually work, if the mechanic, or if it would look silly. Yeah. And honestly, until we rehearsed it, I was still worried that it was going to look silly. But
I remember on the day when we were rehearsing that, and we were like, I guess you maybe just get on his back, or
It was a complicated dance.
But it worked. It just became
sort of bruises. Yeah, but it was fun. It was the only weapon available in the moment. So, and it's a combination of practical effects and then VFX. Because if you watch, if you were to frame through, it's really gross. I mean, you can actually see, and it's digital, but you can see his eyes sort of moving back and forth, and it's really brilliant and sick and beautiful at the same time. But we shot a lot of it, with no prosthetic on or anything, and then they put the gag on him that had where I could actually slip the spoon in there and move the eye around. So we have such an incredible special effects team, and it was great. I love it.
I'm gonna go to some audience questions here in just a minute, so get your head engines working and come up with some questions. No declarations, please have a question. There's no mic, so we're gonna use the vocal cord method here. So go lo-fi, so you gotta raise your hands, I'll call on you. Shout it out to the best of your ability. I wanted to ask what you can tease about where Ophelia is as far as this season goes and how she might play into the mix.
She's alive.
That's good news.
And it's a bit of a mystery because the last time we saw her, she was with the good man, Dayton Callie, and now we're back with him and she's absent. Ophelia is not dead, and we will find out what happened to her as we did with Daniel Salazar. It's to come.
Great. Okay, let's take some questions here. Raise your hand, and I'll see. So first question is going to be
Just kidding, that's not my question. My question is, how do y'all go into these read-throughs or like table reads before an episode, knowing fully well that your character might not make it in that episode, or all four of y'all?
For most of us, well, the core cast, we do get a courtesy call if it does come to that. From
very
Mr.
nice.
Dave Erickson over here. Luckily,
If you get a text from me and it's kind of general and you don't call me back.
that's the thing. Yeah, it's the text. It's like call me.
Because of course not calling him back will save you.
Yeah. So 10 missed calls later, I don't answer. You won't tell me. I won't die. It'll be fine. So yeah, I mean, we kind of get a little heads up. But then there are definitely others that don't get as much of notice.
Everyone gets a call, usually gets a heads up. There's an occasionally yes, or somebody speaks out of turn.
I was thinking more of like, the day plays and stuff.
Yes. Well, no, it wasn't funny, but when we actually, as you get later in the season, the scripts come out a little bit later. Sometimes when we sit down for the table read, it is the first time you guys actually get to read the script. So when we did the finale last season, you didn't know that Andreas was dying or that you were stabbing him.
Yeah.
And I remember you were so happy.
I was so happy to finally kill someone. I don't know if that's a bad thing. But yeah, it's interesting with the table reads, actually. A lot of the time that is our first glimpse of reading it. So it's a lot of information in one full swoop, and we have to get prepared pretty quickly. So that tests us a little.
Yeah, it's not like we get the script and they're, scrolling through to see if we're killed. We get that call or text. That's why I love getting texts from you, but I hate getting texts from you too. It's always a little bit, takes your breath away.
And then we're all hustling for information on the side too. Like, what do you know? What do you know?
We're hustlers.
I know this.
Okay, someone else here? So I'm going to do another close-up, and then I'll get to the back.
Yeah, I just have a general question for the actors. If, hypothetically, your character got a centric episode each, what would you want to happen to your character? What would you want them to get out of the episode?
I just had a pretty centric episode, actually, recently. I did I think it's 313. And I didn't expect it to be what it was. I was really excited to finally have something that was I could really sink my teeth into. I'm so beyond scared to even see it. I just don't want to see it. But it was like it is hard and it's a lot of work. But what I found was that the growth you can just have in that one episode, where you get to just have a big chunk to yourself. Like, it's a lot of work, but you get to grow so quickly as a character, and that's really, really fun. So I don't know, that's just from what I thought just then, because I've recently had that experience.
I want to sleep with Madison.
I don't know what to say to that.
So episode 314.
It's nice when you have an episode where you're not in response to anyone else, so you can really get in touch with the character even more so. There's one coming out for Strand as well, where you see him not in response to this family anymore or to anyone else. It's just like you're finding this person at the center in their core. And it's pretty difficult though as well, because it is like long hours, and you're the only one. It's just you, but it's really cool.
You didn't get the rewrite?
No.
Okay.
For me, it's nice when other people have the episodes to themselves, because then you get a break. We work really hard, really long. It's really fun though. For Madison to do one, I don't know. I would love to explore her backstory, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'd have some days off for that too, because it'd be young Madison. No, I don't know. I mean,
Played by Alycia Debnam Carey.
I'm so surprised by every script I get. I'm just blown away at the talent and the story the beautiful stories they write for us. So I don't know. I'd leave it up to Dave. He's surprised, I'm sure.